This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What is up, everyone? Hope you had a great weekend. The losing streak is over, and we got a big one tonight in Buffalo for your Winnipeg Jets against the Sabres on Prime Video. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk. Huss and Remo with you for the next couple hours. Getting you ready for a big week for the Winnipeg Jets after the losing streak was broken mercifully in Nashville on Saturday night. Excuse me. Now it's time to put a few wins together. They got the Buffalo Sabres twice, the Montreal Canadiens as well, and then a very tough game on Saturday in Edmonton, having to travel after the home game on Friday night. So not an easy road for the Winnipeg Jets, but a big one with another 4 games as the schedule is packed, condensed, lots of games, lots of opportunities to get points, but also just needing to move past a really ugly month of November. Mercifully, December is here. It is the first of the month, and the Jets will look to turn around their fortunes over the course of the next 31 days while they await the return of Connor Hellebuck. We'll get into how the lines are looking for tonight, and we'll also talk to the guy that's going to be between the benches for tonight's Prime Video broadcast. Thomas Hickey's going to join us. And then a little later on, Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press, will sit down with us. And Mike, of course, was there for that ugly Black Friday game in Carolina, which we'll touch on. He was there for the win Saturday night in Nashville and got a chance to sit down with Winnipeg Jets general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff for over a half an hour to talk about the problems the team's going through right now and, where this team moves from here. So we'll get to all of that with Mike. And then a little later on in the program, our pal in Buffalo, Joe Yerdon, will jump on to talk about the ups and downs the Sabres have had so far this season as they sit towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings. But as it is in the East, without a huge degree of separation from getting into a wild card. Lots of hockey today. We'll touch on the NFL at the end of the season as well. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, big thanks to all of our sponsors that make the show happen each and every day, particularly our pals at Coolbet. It's Cyber Monday today, and I know they've been doing some flash sales, like 1-hour specials. Heads up, and we'll talk about this in the second hour of the program, but between 2 and 3 our time, we are going to see the Kyle Connor goal be boosted up to plus 200 for tonight. That'll be a $20 max, but if you want to jump in on that, we'll make sure you know that it is up there. Also want to thank Princess Auto, our friends at Chud's Power Sports, Clean Line, Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, Rollies Transfer, St. Vital Dental Center, Canadian Club, and Uptown Alley, Manitoba Battery, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug. We'll get to a Why Not question of the day for Not Auto Corp at Waverly and McGillivray. Of course, plenty of feedback, I'm sure, locked and loaded after a weekend off for fansfirst.ca. Let's get Michael Remis in here. Remo, how was your weekend?
Fantastic weekend, Huss. Just in the full swing of kids' activities into early hockey part of my life. But Winnipeg Jets with the 2 games was a nice game Friday and Saturday, a big win. Didn't want to come on here to talk about 5 losses in a row. It would have been rough. So showing some life. Getting some of that secondary scoring we've been talking about. Shout out to Nino Niederreiter. Cole Perfetti on the board too. Let's see them continue it tonight. Solid opponent in Buffalo. Good time to rack up a couple wins here this week.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there will be no parades being planned for beating the Nashville Predators of all teams, but I mean, all wins are not created equal, and that was one that I can tell you the hockey club needed, but so did the fans. I mean, I did some soul searching on Friday night, Remo. I had my Chiefs lose on Thursday, and then the game on Friday in Carolina was discouraging on so many levels. I really felt for Thomas Milic, who I thought played his ass off for the majority of that hockey game, and kept the Winnipeg Jets in it. I thought it was a really impressive debut for Milic. I mean, it got away on him a little bit in the final sort of 7-8 minutes, but the way that game was played, that was probably likely to have happened far earlier if he wasn't playing as well as he did. The final score probably was apt. And of course, it was Winnipeg native Seth Jarvis with the hat trick. I mean, just a miserable Black Friday day. And as you said, I mean, we were maybe missing the leaking gravy comments, but it was similar to a few of the ugly Black Friday games in Jets 2.0 history that we'd seen in the past. I mean, of the entire losing streak, this was probably the one that the team was the furthest off of it. And Scott Arniel did not mince words after the game. Let's just get right to this, and then we can talk more about that game right off the bat. Here is Arniel post-game, clearly frustrated with a very subpar effort against a good Carolina team.
Well, didn't start very good. First period, we had a lot of guys that forgot to show up. Start of the game. That first period, got the kid in net, and we take two sloppy penalties, but we get stuck in there a few times, lost a lot of battles. There's some structure stuff that we got away from, and the kid made some big stops, kept us in that one, and obviously allowed us a chance better in the second, a lot better in the second. Came out in the third doing the right things, and then it was too quick back. What is it, 8-minute mark? Back-to-back plays and their coverage plays. And both those plays came right down. One went off. I think one went off one of our defensemen. The other one, those are coming right down Grand Central. So that's on us. That's on. Feel for the kid because he was giving us a chance.
You've been with this group a while. Safe to say you're a bit surprised that guys would come out maybe not ready to play, given the veteran group and all the talk around this team lately.
Yeah, we're a veteran group that you expect, and when we're already having a tough go here, we've already we've lost a few games now in a row, and to come out to start the game that way in a building like this, knowing the other opposition isn't going to be sitting back and they're going to come hard, it's just that's for all of us. Young and old, whatever, it's part of your profession is being ready, being prepared for games. And I guess I got to do a little bit more, scream a little bit longer or harder or whatever, but find a way to get these guys to be ready to play.
All right, so there was Scott Arniel after the game, Reem, very, very disappointed with the way the team came out. And, I mean, you look at the final shots in the game. Thomas Milic faced 34. There was one on an empty net. Brandon Bussey had to make all of 12 saves in that game, and that wasn't going to cut it. But it was the start that was so clearly irking Scott Arniel. And here, we'll just play this one more clip, and then we'll sort of get into it. Elias Salmonson did move up and play with Josh Morrissey a good period of time in the second half of the game. Here was Mike asking about Elias getting a look with Josh, and Arnie was pretty clear as to why he made that move.
That had to do with certain people weren't ready to play.
Yeah. Did you like what you saw from that?
Yeah, I bet it's to put a kid in a situation like that again. I thought he was real good and did a lot of really good things. But he's also, he's running into some pretty deep water here. There's two pretty quick teams in Washington and Carolina, and thought he held his own.
So he held his own, and I actually did think there were some moments where he looked really exciting and effective, Reem, but I think this was less that you have a young player that, should be playing in the top pairing as much as Dylan DeMello really bearing the brunt of some of the anger of Scott Arniel. Not surprising, he took that first penalty in the game that Arnie was mentioning, a careless, sloppy penalty, and, you don't really hear the coach almost ever talk about, say quotes like some guys didn't show up for the game. I mean, that's pretty pointed criticism. And frankly, I couldn't agree with him more. And this sort of time of the schedule where you've had a month the way they've had in November, certainly the time to peel the Band-Aid off and just be realistic and say exactly what it was.
Yeah, the Jets have fallen out of a playoff spot for the first time we can remember in a while. And you go into Carolina on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. Last time I checked, they're not going to much of family dinners in Carolina like they were in Minnesota all those years. You made the leaking gravy jokes from Nate Schmidt and all the Minnesota guys. But
they did a team dinner on Thursday.
Yeah. Oh, the team did. Okay.
So, I mean, they still ate a lot, I'm sure. Maybe too much. I don't know. But
well, afternoon game. You know, sometimes I go to these big dinners, Huss, and I don't eat for a full 24 hours after. But I know these guys are all pros. I'm sure they can control themselves, unlike myself at times. But you're outshot 35-13. You know, you lose the 2 games against Nikolai Ehlers. I don't know if they were going out for any dinners the night before for game 2. You have Winnipegger Seth Jarvis with the hat trick. You know, an afternoon game. Didn't feel great losing 4 in a row. Has just not looking in the same league as Carolina for the third period. Some positives, as you mentioned, Elias Salomonsson holding his own. Did not get in on Saturday and will not be getting in the lineup tonight. And Thomas Milic making his first start. We were talking so much about the parallels with Connor Hellebuyck being a late-round pick, getting your first start on Black Friday. And, you know, he was solid. He kept them in it, but unfortunately, the team in front of him just gave up too many high-quality chances that wasn't his night. So I'm sure Milic, while Hellebuyck is out, will get in again. There is a back-to-back, another one, coming up this week with Buffalo on Friday and Edmonton on Saturday. But that was a tough one. You lose 4 in a row. You know, scoring, been tough. I don't know what he said, Huss, because I thought those quotes when you read them were a lot more scathing, the way they sounded. I think Mike tweeted out because he was the only reporter there talking, and he's like, oh, Scott Arniel said we didn't show up to play. I was expecting Arniel to be like full Rick bonus. There's no pushback, mad, but he's pretty just calm, matter of fact. And I don't know what he said about the start, but they got off to the perfect start there on Saturday.
I heard Edmonds and Mitch on OB yesterday before the game talking about, you know, what Arniel had to say after the game and sort of comparing it to the Utah game last year.
Yeah.
Which you'll recall. That was the one time where he really kind of, you know, expressed his displeasure very openly and publicly with the media after the game. And yeah, listen, I think he, like, you know, that first clip was like a minute and a half. And, you know, he kind of dialed it back a little bit as far as the anger. But you could see he was sort of at the end of his rope with the team that, you know, had been struggling. And when you're struggling, scoring goals, I mean, you really do have to get back to what made you successful in the first place. And they were so off of it. And listen, that's a really fast team, but they look slow at times. I will say this, though, Reem. As bad as the end of the game was and the final score, there were some things from that game that I really did like. I thought Milic was awesome. I really liked the way that he seemed to be a very composed goaltender. You know, confident with the puck. Listen, he's not a big guy, but he, you know, did a good job of covering up as much space as possible, made a couple saves, you know, with his mask, like up against the post. So I thought that was good. And to be honest, I thought there were some real moments for Elias Salomonsson in that game where, you know, the excitement of a young player playing in his second game that has the sort of skill set that he has, you know, can help you do some special things. He made a couple great breakout passes, and I thought was playing with some confidence. I really do hope we'll see him back in the lineup this week while he's with the team right now. It looks like they're rolling with the same lineup from the win on Saturday night, so we'll get to that in a minute. And to be honest, I actually thought Logan Stanley had some real moments in that game as well. But the bottom line is, if we're talking about depth defensemen looking good, and we're not talking about anybody other than the top line scoring goals, this team probably won't be going very far, which was refreshing about the game on Saturday. They actually scored first. They were actually playing with the lead and actually had guys not named Scheifele, Connor, or Velarde scoring for the Winnipeg Jets. You know, Niederreiter got on the board, but most noteworthy, Cole Perfetti, who really had been playing like he had a gorilla on his back.
Yeah, we've been talking so much secondary scoring. It's only, the top line getting the goals. When were we going to get something from the second line? Because surely you can't win games consistently if you only have one line scoring. And it wasn't the prettiest one, but Nino broke the drought going down the wing at the end of the first period and just ripping a shot past the Nashville goalie. And if you're going up against Nashville, they're at the bottom of the standings. There's reports from Frank Saravalli saying what their locker room is a total mess. So the Jets needed to win that one. You can't have a 5-game losing streak and perfect opportunity. And that's what they've done. They're able to take advantage of these teams below them in the standings. And they got off to a great start with Velarde pouncing on a Scheifele rebound, and then Nino making it 2-0, and really didn't look back. And nice for Eric Comrie to get his first win since Hellebuyck was injured, and maybe some question marks as well about Luke Schenn coming in for Elias Salamonson. Salamonson had done all right in his appearance, but they sat him out, and Schenn comes in, throws the body around, and gets 2 assists. And how about Logan Stanley as well? Throwing some big hits and getting into a big fight. So they're fired up. That was a can lose. I don't know if it was a must win or can lose, but they needed that game bad.
It was must win. I declared it must win, at least on my group chats over the court. And no, maybe it was personal. Maybe it was for us because the thought, and honest to God, dude, after that game, all Friday night and throughout Saturday and the day, I was thinking about Saturday night's game and going, if they lose this game, and we have to open the show on Monday, heading into a new week on a 5-game losing streak, dropping both. It is going to be absolute chaos in the chat. And listen, I know that there is a long, long ways to go for this team. But, you hope that it starts with one win. And you'll hope that they'll be able to pick things up and continue it against the Buffalo Sabres team tonight that just beat the Minnesota Wild. Which no one has been doing. I believe it was in overtime or a shootout, but they got 2 points in Minnesota, which is pretty impressive. But they haven't strung anything together consistently all year long, and these should be 2 real desperate teams. But listen, we're going to spend plenty of time talking about tonight's matchup. But let's get to Saturday, because as I said, there were finally some things that the Jets have been looking to do that happened. Secondary scoring. You mentioned Luke Schenn coming in with 2 assists and a bunch of hits. They were seemingly a lot more engaged. You mentioned the pop that Logan Stanley added to that game last night. And Dylan Sandberg, one of the quietest 3-point nights I can remember with 3 assists as well. But bottom line was, whoever scored, it was about getting a win, first and foremost. Here's Scott Arniel on breaking the losing streak. Here's what he had to say post-game in Music City.
Yeah, that was obviously a really good first period, and get out in front like that, especially up 2-0, you're not chasing the game, and put some pressure on the home team. So, liked a lot of what we did, our battle, our compete, that type of stuff we talked about. I thought throughout our lineup that, there was one-on-one battles happening, and we were winning a lot of them, and that was big for us.
There's been a lot of talk about team speed. Do you feel like you guys played faster? You look faster as a team today.
I think that's execution has a lot to do with that. I think when you are, working to get open, if you don't have the puck, but then, whoever has the puck making a quick play. I thought we did it fast. That was, coming out of our end. We weren't waiting to, sort of be, waiting for the next best play. We were moving it quick, and, then the transition helped us a lot.
Yeah, it is funny. I kind of agree. The team looked quicker. Now, again, was the opponent? There is something to be said about doing things, making decisions quickly, as opposed to, the Carolina game. You never had the puck. You're chasing it around the whole time. And they did look like a step behind the majority of that game so far. Now, all last week, the question around the Winnipeg Jets was, who else can actually light the lamp? They needed secondary scoring. Cole Perfetti at the front of that line needing to generate something, and he was able to score on Saturday night. How big was that for the young Jet forward? Here's Scott Arniel on Perfetti getting on the score sheet.
Everybody, I think the whole bench there, everybody jumped up on that one. Great play. JT getting in on it first, the east-west behind it at the Vladdy. And, like we said, if you're not scoring goals, make sure you get close to the net. And that's exactly what we went, right down the hash marks. And however it went in, and it's a little bit of relief for him.
All right, so Cole Perfetti gets the monkey off his back, and he'll look to see if he can go back-to-back with one tonight. Remis, you mentioned Luke Schenn coming into the lineup, and listen, I'll be honest. I mean, when I think about that game against Carolina, there were some exciting things about Elias Salmonson that I wanted to see more. So when I heard that Luke Schenn was in, I'm like, really? I mean, I get that he played in Nashville before, but listen, Schenn had a real strong game, and Arnie talked about him stepping in with the physical play that he added and getting on the score sheet with 2 assists as well.
You know what? Obviously, he had played a few games, and that's what you like when you're veteran guys, when they're pros, when they can step in and play like that and not sort of miss a beat. And we needed it, both his physicality, but also he made a great play on Nino's goal, the rink wide, and then obviously, we had talked about D-man getting pucks to the net front, and that's what he did on KC's goal. He got it down there and allowed that to happen. So when guys can step in like that, it's a big bonus.
All right, so Luke Schenn with a strong game. Nino Niederreiter, scoring, and of course Cole Perfetti making that happen. And just a final one from Arniel, in that when you go through a stretch like the Jets have, where they're clearly struggling, you got to stop the bleeding and then build on it. Here's Arnie, just on the confidence boost to a team that so desperately needed to finish up a 60-minute game on the right side of the scoreboard.
It's one. I mean, we wanted to win one in a row, and so that's the first one. And now we got to move on to Buffalo. And the biggest thing for us is the lessons that we learn of not being consistent with our shifts and periods. Now it's being consistent with this game that we played tonight. That's how we play in Buffalo.
So sets up an interesting matchup tonight, Reem. A team that really, really needs to string a few together to make up for what was a lost month in November, knowing that they're going to continue to do it on a really, really compacted schedule without Connor Hellebuck. And then, of course, the Buffalo Sabres, who we'll talk more with Joe Yerdon and a little bit with Thomas Hickey about later on. A team that, I mean, let's face it, when you see the Buffalo Sabres on your schedule, you think that's a winnable game. Well, playing the way the Jets had for the last 3 weeks or so, that wasn't necessarily the case. The Jets are actually still an underdog in this game tonight. But for them to stop the bleeding, they need to continue that with a result tonight and hopefully get a little bit of positive momentum going on through this week.
Yeah, it's just standings watch, Hess. We've talked about this. Colorado 9-0-1 in their last 10. Dallas 8-1-1 in their last 10. Minnesota 8-0-2 in their last 10. That is crazy. That is crazy to keep a crazy pace. And the Jets 4-6-0, and they've got 26 points currently out of a wild card spot. But you look at points percentage, they would be occupying that second wild card by points percentage, 5-4-2, greater than Chicago's 5-4-0. So they got a couple of games in hand. They've got their one win that Scott Arniel said. Time to string a couple together, and you're playing, Buffalo twice this week, Montreal on Wednesday, at Edmonton, who got a big win. Saturday?
Yeah, Stewie Skins with a shutout after getting aired out all week.
Yeah, we talked about that on Friday. Fans getting on him, and Jim Matheson saying, "Hey, the fans don't want you as their goalie anymore." Responds with a shutout. So I think the Jets they get one, see if they can get another, and then maybe you can string a couple in a row. And it's so tightly packed together, you right back in a wild card spot. So it's easy to get high and get low. They did really get blown out on Friday, but it was a really nice response Saturday, and that's what you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, just pulling up the standings as you mentioned. I mean, I don't even know if we're going to be talking much about the Central Division. At least, I mean, unless the Jets go on a 5 or 6 game heater, and some of these teams, somebody loses a few games. We're basically talking wild card right now. I mean, Colorado's running away with the division. The Dallas Stars never lose. They're at 38 points, and Minnesota's 33. If you missed the Chuds Power Sports Power Poll on Thursday, I've got those as the top 3 teams in the NHL. 1, 2, 3, all in the Central Division. And that's why this division is the best and the toughest neighborhood in the NHL. But if you look at the wild card right now, the Kraken are in the 1 wild card game. They are 4 games above 500 with 28 points in 24 games. The Blackhawks are holding down the second wild card. They're 2 games above 500. The Jets are also 2 games above 500, but they played 1 game less. So if they were able to win tonight, they would move to that spot with 1 extra point. So they'd get to 28. They'd be 3 games above 500, and in the process would pass the Oilers, Sharks, and Mammoth. Although the Mammoth are playing tonight, all those teams just 1 game above NHL 500. Let's take a look at the clean line lines for tonight's game. 6:30 start, Prime Video. The first of 3 Prime games this month, actually, for the Winnipeg Jets. And we're going to talk to Thomas Hickey coming out right away. But here we are with our lines, brought to you by Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your local leader for over 40 years, and the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. Captain approved. Scheifele with Connor and Velarde. The way things started in Nashville is the way they're going to go. Jonathan Toews with Nemestikov and Perfetti. I really had a lot of time for Toews' game. I think he was a big part of Perfetti getting onto the scoreboard. He was there with Vlad. Nino and Iafallo on Lowry's wings. And the fourth line was Barron in the middle with Tanner Pearson and Gustav Nyquist. The defense pairings, Morrissey and DeMello, Sandberg with Shen, Stanley and Miller, and we expect Eric Comrie to get the start tonight. I do wonder when the next time we'll see Thomas Milich's Reem. And we'll touch on this. We'll see if Mike gathers at all. I mean, you got this game in the Bell Center, which would be a really cool place for a young player to play. But I would imagine it'll be Comrie these next 2 games. And then you look at the weekend. Buffalo in town on Friday, and then a late night flight to Edmonton for a road game on Saturday. Like, going up against the Oilers on the second end of back-to-backs might be a really, really tough spot for a young goaltender to be put in. So I'm not sure whether they maybe don't do what they did this week and have Milich play the Friday game and Comrie go on the Saturday. But the bottom line is it looks like it'll be Eric for at least the next couple games, and then they can figure out what they're going to do on the back-to-backs.
Yeah, I maybe go with the same thing. Has worked this time with Milich getting the Friday, with Comrie getting the Saturday against Nashville. Maybe you have Comrie against Buffalo tonight, and then you switch it up, give him a different look on Friday. So you'd like to see Milich get a better opportunity with the team in front of him playing at their best, and it would be nice for him to get a home start as well in Winnipeg. And he's played here with the Moose before. But the goalie situation, life without Connor Hellebuyck, something we're going to be monitoring, as this goes on, this 4 to 6 week period without the reigning MVP.
Well, as we mentioned, we are going to get going with we're going to have Thomas Hickey join us in just a couple of minutes. Just before we do that, it is December, folks, and it is time to get together with friends and family. We'll have some big dinners, but we're also looking for great activities. And might I remind you that our friends at Uptown Alley at 1301 St. Matthews Avenue have the most incredible facility for fun for kids and adults of all ages. 5-pin bowling, 10-pin bowling, laser tag, an amazing arcade, carnival-style games where you win tickets to be cashed in for great prizes, not to mention amazing food and drink options all waiting for you at Uptown Alley. Great time to pop down there and pick up some gift cards, which will be a great stocking stuffer or little gift underneath the tree. And of course, you can also plan your events or parties, perfect for groups of kids, teens, or adults. And they have amazing group and corporate events or holiday events where you pick your activities, your meal, your add-ons, and then let their events team take care of everything else. And of course, don't forget that bowl and play special, the daily deal after 9 p.m., 90 minutes of bowling and a $10 arcade card for $20.49 per person for 5-pin, $22.49 per person for 10-pin. Pop down and see him, 1301 St. Matthews, uptownalley.ca for more information. And, of course, information on how to pick up those gift cards for Christmas. Looking ahead to 2026, many of you might be on the move. Our friends at Rolly's Transfer for over 60 years have been helping Manitobans make it to their next destination with all their prized possessions and take as much of the stress out of the moving process as possible. Head on over to Rolly's Transfer. You can find out about everything they can do, being the most trusted Winnipeg and Manitoba moving and storage company. You can click on Request an Estimate. Use the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. And then let them know where you're moving, when you're moving, and what needs to be moved. And the friendly staff at Rolly's will get you a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment and service that they're famous for now into their 7th decade of service in the province. For all your moving needs, make it Rolly's Transfer. Find out more, request an estimate today over at Rollies.com. Big shout out to Dr. Terry and the gang down at St. Vital Dental Center. I know going to the dentist might not be one of the top things on your to-do list, but it's very, very important. And I can tell you, you won't have a better dental experience anywhere than at St. Vital Dental Center. Terry and his wonderful staff have been serving generations of Winnipeggers in St. Vital and now have a beautiful new facility not too far from downtown at 167 St. Anne's Road with convenient free parking right behind the building, something that you won't find downtown. They've got a full array of dental services for clients from 6 months to 99 plus. Cleanings, checkups, all the way things like dental implants. They do it all. Find out more online at stvitaldental.ca. Make an appointment and tell them the boys from Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And just before we welcome in Thomas Hickey, December is officially here. You know that the holidays are upon us, which means entertaining and gift giving. And when you pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts, keep an eye out for the iconic Canadian Club, Canada's original Canadian whiskey since 1858. Of course, limited edition, a limited stock available still of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers special edition label bottle. Perfect for entertaining and maybe for that whiskey and bomber fan in your crew. And of course, as you can see on the screen now, this is what you're going to want to keep your eyes out for. The Canadian Club Cranberry Ginger Ale. Absolutely awesome. Pre-mixed in cans. You don't need to worry about it. Just pour it on some ice and serve it, maybe with a little garnish, and look like a hero for your party guests. It is available in the 473 milliliter cans, as well as in 4-packs. You can grab that at your local liquor marts and keep your eyes open for the Cranberry Ginger Ale when you pop by your local bottle shop or beer vendor. Huge thanks to Canadian Club, and a reminder to all of you, drink responsibly and don't drink and drive throughout the holiday season. All right, we've got a big one tonight. Buffalo, New York. Jets and Sabres. The game not on TSN. This is one of 3 Prime video games this month. And the guy that's going to be between the benches is Thomas Hickey. Let's bring him in and get ready for puck drop tonight on Prime. Thomas, what's going on? Great to have you back on the show.
Thanks. No, it's going to be exciting. Just us chatting before we get on here. I mean, 2 teams that need a win. You look around the NHL, and outside of like a handful of teams, you sort of feel like everyone's scratching and clawing and on the road, or having a brutal stretch of a bunch of games in very few nights. So it's sort of the grind time here. Now that we've reached December, it feels like points are really tough to come by right now, and the games are tight and decided by sort of a bounce. So we'll see what tonight has in store, but. I think for both groups looking to maybe string something together.
Well, you sort of nailed the Jet situation in a nutshell. First of all, the teams that are sort of getting away from everyone are all in the Central Division. Colorado never loses. Dallas is unreal, and Minnesota hasn't lost in about a month. And it's compounded by a really tough month in November where the Jets weren't very good and then lost their franchise player and starting Vezina Trophy winning goaltender Connor Hellebuck. I know you were down around the rink today for the Jets morning skate. I mean, they got a win on Saturday and absolutely had to have it to break that 4-game losing streak. How would you describe sort of the mood around the Winnipeg Jets going to a game that they got to feel like they just must have?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nashville was big to sort of, especially to go on the road, get a lead. You're in a tough situation. I think the game will be actually quite similar. Buffalo, speaking with them too, they're playing better hockey. And I know that if you look at the standings, they're right down below, but the East is way different than the West, as you know. I mean, the Central Division's sort of the outlier of teams separating at the top, but out East, I mean, everyone's still in it. So I think you're going to get a strong Buffalo game, but it's sort of the same storylines for every team, right? And I think the Jets, inner dialogue, they're not talking about their injuries, but from my perspective, someone that watches them play, and Pionk's a big loss for them, so no Pionk, and it just sort of slots your D pairs a little bit differently than last year, and it seems like everyone's just trying to integrate back in, right? You get Adam Lowry back in, that's a huge part of your team, but it takes a while with the new faces the Jets have as well, just to find the synergy that I thought they had last year as far as the roles of each line. And right now, I think the Jets are trying to get back to that and trying to find it, but difficult with the injuries that they do have. And on the other side, you've got a Buffalo team that is not really complaining about the injuries that they have, but pieces that have been out for them, and guys like Darlene and Zucker and some of the guys that make the identity of what they have. So, not to continue to go around and around on this, but it feels like everyone's in a similar spot. I'm sure Buffalo, they go on a big, long road trip. Like, as much as the Jets are saying this is sort of one we got to have, I think for Buffalo, they're like, got one last chance at home here to maybe set us up, because we know it's going to be difficult sledding on the road.
Well, and the funny thing is, I mean, the two matchups between the two teams this year are going to come within 4 days of each other, because Sabres are in town here in the Peg on Friday night. So they'll have quite a bit of familiarity by Friday night after playing this game. But Thomas, I wanted to lean on your time as a player. The Jets came into this season with high expectations. They won the President's Trophy. They made some offseason ads that they thought would make them even a better playoff team. But of course, you got to get there. And they had a nice start at 9-3, although the analytics maybe said that was a bit of a paper record. And then the bottom sort of falls out in November. When you are in a team that's gone through an extended period of 2 or 3 weeks where you're losing and you're playing well below your expectations, how do you snap out of it? What are the keys to overcoming a really tough time in a long schedule and getting back on track, not for one game, but consistently?
Yeah, it sounds like a boring answer, but I mean, as a player, you just really go out there and try to compete a little bit harder or do a little bit better. But I mean, from experience, the times that you're in those situations, and if you're on a team that has good structure, eventually those wins come. When you're a team that lacks structure, that's when you might win a few in a row, 3 in a row, then lose 4 in a row. And I think the Jets are set up with more structure. And to your point, sort of the record on paper was good, but really it was uncharacteristic of how many grade A scoring chances they were giving up early on. And, Hellebuyck was the reason they were bailed out of that. Last year, that wasn't the case. I mean, they had this bedrock and this structure and a way that they played that made it really difficult for other teams to generate. I think the Jets are getting back to that. So I think there's things that they got to lean on, but the Jets of last year, the Jets when they play well this year, there's some commonalities between those two groups. And I always think when I watch the Jets, the way they come out of their zone, they're more than the sum of their parts, the bodies that are on the ice, like a group that really supports one another, breaking out of the zone, whether it's maybe a big D man that doesn't move the puck as well as, a Josh Morrissey. They just came out together constantly, and I'm seeing that creep back into their game. And I think for them, that structure is sort of, might be the difference on, a 10-game slate of going 6-4 and going 4-6 as you work your way through injuries and bodies out of the lineup and finding some new chemistry with new bodies. So I think the Jets are going to be okay, but that structure is probably what they're going to need to lean on. And I think that's part that's coming together. But, speaking with everyone on Winnipeg side today, it's been difficult. It's not like you just started the season and expected to get the same results as you did last year. They've got to build and work towards that, and I think they're on their way.
The game on Saturday night, they had to have. I mean, they had another ugly performance on Friday afternoon, and maybe luckily they were right back out there the next day. And listen, no one's planning any parades for beating the Nashville Predators right now. We know where they are in the standings, but for a team that's had a real tough time with any secondary scoring for the past 3 weeks or so. And bottom line, just getting a result, winning a game when you're in a losing streak from an individual perspective and just the feeling around a team. I mean, how helpful is it just to get a win and going into that next game like the Jets are tonight? How can that maybe help push them forward to just play with a little more confidence as opposed to just fearing the worst is always just around the corner?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And that's a difficult part. I mean, it's with the Jets, I think maybe a misconception that they'll only go as far as their big guys will take them. It's not true. I mean, their big guys are always there. They always produce. They'll only go as far as the rest of the group's going to take those guys, because that top line with Velarde and Scheifele and Connor, those guys are going to be there. You can count on that. You can depend on it. I think getting guys like Anita Ryder score a couple on that line, you pick up some points, and maybe that pressure is released just a touch for that line. Then you go into a night like tonight. Well, got our top line going. That's nothing new. But we've also got another line that's going to be chipping in. And as you start to add guys with, as silly as it sounds, I mean, especially for forwards in the NHL, you go and judge your game off how you played it, but points have a funny way of factoring into your psyche and confidence and maybe how you feel when you go out and grip your stick coming out into the next game. So, going to be a huge benefit to get everyone else going. And I'm not saying that it would be okay if they lost 5-4 tonight and the top line got shut out and everyone else chipped in, each other line chipped in with a goal or two. But there are certain times of the year that you sense you need that more than others. And this is sort of a time for the Jets. Like, who else can they add to scoring a goal and producing? And then I think everything will settle itself back down. But those questions are going to remain until you can consistently have a couple games in a row where you're not counting on your top line to carry the load the entire time.
Well, that's been kind of one of the really weird things about this, is that if you look back over the past 5 seasons or so, when the Jets have gone into, slumps or little mini slumps, it's often the time when the top line sort of dries up for a little bit. But this has been happening while Mark Scheifele's on pace for a career high. Kyle Connor's playing well. Gabe Velarde's been awesome lately. And it has been basically not getting much from the other 3 lines. And, in that game, you could sort of feel an exhale, even probably from the guys that didn't score, when Niederreiter and some of the other players that scored that weren't on that top line getting in. And, I mean, there's probably no real science to it, I'd imagine. I mean, you want to get pucks on net. You want to do the things that will make you successful, and hopefully one happens. But there is an element of just taking some of the load off that top line that, has basically been the weight that they've been carrying since the start of the season.
Yeah, it needs to happen. I look to Perfetti is probably the guy for me that you lose Ehlers, and Nyquist is a guy that's capable of more, hasn't scored yet this year. That surprises me. I look at guys like that. It's like, you need that to be part of your team. You need those guys to, not every night, but maybe 1 out of every 5 nights you go, Perfetti was our best guy today. And obviously this is a guy with great potential, but I don't want to say he's been sheltered, but he hasn't been given the keys to, be counted on and expected to score. And you're sort of at the point right now going, I think he's capable of it, but we need someone like that to just provide that threat and maybe 1 out of 5 be our most noticeable for it. Not even the best, but, maybe you create 5 scoring chances in a game. Like, I think that's sort of what Winnipeg needs. And it's an awful burden that those guys carry on the top line, and they just continue to go on and go about their business day after day. And you mentioned when they dry up, the Jets often lose because they don't have secondary scoring, or it's the couple goals per game that those guys contribute that you're missing, and all of a sudden it looks different. So I think there's capable guys, but not guys that have really been in a position before where they're relied upon, like Perfetti's finding himself now.
Well, and the funny thing about it is you look back at last season where everything seemed to fall the Jets' way, and they won the President's Trophy. They got elite performances from those guys up front, but it wasn't as big of a deal if they had a quiet couple of games, because you did have, from 2 to 4, some real contributions that, for whatever reason, just haven't been happening lately. The one guy that, on this team, we certainly aren't saying has not been contributing offensively is Josh Morrissey. I know we talked about Josh last year. You get a chance to see him a few times over the course of this next week, Thomas. Just thoughts on the development that Josh has shown over the last number of years, and in your opinion, I mean, is he now a legitimate contender, albeit maybe not a winner as long as Cale Makar's in the league, but to be a finalist for the Norris Trophy?
100%. 100%. I had a good catch up with Josh. I mean, we're both Calgary guys, so I've known him for quite some time, and just talking about his game, and it just blows my mind that both him and Scheifele are getting better and better and better. Look around the NHL and take the top 2 or 3 guys on every single team that are in that 30-year-old range, and you're going to be saying, man, I'm going to savor this right now because I can tell they're not going to stay at this level for forever or for a long time, or maybe they're already starting to taper off a little bit and play differently to maintain their offensive abilities, or how they're going to create chances. Morrissey and Scheifele are different. They're both continuing to get better every single year. And I think if you're a Jets fan, sort of understand that it's rare, that doesn't happen everywhere, that the guys hit 30 years old and usually it goes the other way. These guys are making notable strides in their games, and they're better now because they put in so much work, not just in the season, in the grind of it, in the off season. Like, these guys are addicted to the game. They're students of the game. And that's why their games are continuing to ascend and get better. Yes, Josh Morrissey, hold out your hand and 5 fingers. He should be one of the guys that you talk about when you think best defenseman in the NHL. And I think he's unique in the sense that he's gifted. He's got that offensive ability, but he doesn't have the top guys' pizzazz when you talk about Hughes and Makar and the highlights that they put up. But consistently, Josh Morrissey gets so much out of himself. And because he's not a really big guy, probably doesn't get a lot of credit for the way he defends all over the ice. He's been outstanding. He's a lock for Team Canada on the blue line. I've got zero question in my mind for that. And he's going to play big minutes in that tournament. And a guy that just continues to grow, evolve, and get better quietly, maybe without recognition. But I'm glad this year. I mean, I don't know how other people feel, but it's pretty obvious and clear. And it helps that he produces at an extremely high rate for a guy that is equally competent and aware in his own end.
Yeah, as much as we never wanted to imagine the Jets without Connor Hellebuck, and we're living it right now, Josh Morrissey's right there for his importance to the Winnipeg Jets team. Just quickly, I mean, we know what Buffalo and their fans have been through for the last decade and a half. Is there any sense of optimism around Buffalo, or is it just more of the ups and downs of a year that has them near the bottom of the standings, despite in reality being probably a 5-game winning streak over right being there in a playoff spot?
Yeah, I think there's more optimism inside the dressing room, talking to their players. Like, they've been through it for a long time, and guys that have been here for a little bit, like a Tage Thompson, for instance, I think there's a recognition on their end. I mean, it's not like anyone said, we're right there, we're ready to do it. I think there's an understanding that if they want to win hockey games, there's a certain style and a certain way that they need to play those hockey games. And it's not in the sense of the skill of a Dahlin and a Thompson and a Tuck and all these highly skilled guys. It's not because they dominate a game with their physical skills. It's because the team plays a certain way. And I think there's an understanding, or maybe a learning at this point of, okay, we've tried this so many different ways. We're really skilled, but we can't find a way. I think they're understanding how they need to play the game, which is probably a little less entertaining than what they're capable of, in order for them to be in the mix for a wild card spot when, we'll say, late February, early March rolls around. They're still in that spot right now, right? They're not far out of it. I think for me, a reason for optimism, Josh Norris is going to be back today. He's been through it. We know that. The injuries that he's dealt with. When I watch the Buffalo Sabres, I see young players that they've drafted recently that look like they're highly skilled and could be part of something. But I look at their top 6 and go, for as skilled as I think this group is, I look at the top 6 and go, they're missing a piece. Is Josh Norris that guy? We'll find out. He hasn't really had runway to prove that in Buffalo, but if a healthy Josh Norris played to his full capabilities, is, maybe call it a first line, second line center, whatever you want, whatever the balance is, all of a sudden you can look at it and say, okay, maybe it slots everyone else in their place, and you get a lot out of those top guys. The back end potential, ability-wise, I mean, Dahlin and Bo Byram, graceful, beautiful skaters, and guys that compete, stick their nose in there. Samuelson's had a year that, speaking with Lindy Ruff this morning, he said he's been our best defenseman, best all-around defenseman. It's going to surprise a lot of people, but he's taken a step. He's still a young guy himself. Kesselring's a guy that they brought in, after the big trade for JJ Peterka, and you've got Owen Power, who's the first overall pick in the NHL. So you look at that top 5 and you go, okay, I can see a reason for optimism if everybody's healthy. Story in the NHL right now for practically everyone is we're not healthy. And can they do it without those guys and a full complement of the players that they added in the summer, or the players that you should have on your roster? If they're all healthy, understanding the way that they need to play, I can see a reason for optimism. But if I'm a Buffalo Sabres fan, I'm probably saying I've been fooled before, and prove it to me first, and do it for a long time, and then I'm going to get on board and be optimistic myself. But certainly a reason for pessimism. It's a great sports town. It's a great hockey city, and I hope that it gets back to where it should be, where they should be competing for a playoff spot every year, because the league hockey is going to be better for that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have a lot of time for the Buffalo fans and feel brutal for them because of the way they support their team and what they've been through. Hopefully that turnaround starts maybe Saturday after these 2 games against the Winnipeg Jets. Thomas, we'll look forward to seeing you and the Prime Monday Night Hockey crew here in the Peg in 2 weeks, and again in 4 weeks for all Canadian matchups against the Sens and Oilers. But tonight we'll be looking forward to you and the squad bringing us Jets and Sabres coming up 6:30 Winnipeg time on Prime Video. Say hi to our pal Verk, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the Peg in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Plenty of Jets coming up. So hope everyone enjoys, and we'll put on the best show that we can. We always do, but hopefully the Jets can find themselves and get rolling like I know they're capable of. And it'll be a fun couple weeks here with a lot of Jets hockey coming up.
All right, good stuff with Thomas Hickey. We'll look forward to a few more of the Prime Video guests jumping on over these next few weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks today, Sens in town to take on the Jets. That's a prime game. And then the Oilers on the 29th. That should be a good one. Second game of the month between Jets and Oilers. Of course, they'll play on Saturday. Quick turnaround after a home game for Winnipeg against these same Buffalo Sabres on Friday night. I want to thank our friends at Princess Auto for the great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Princess Auto is synonymous with Winnipeg. It founded right here in the Peg and headquartered here as well, and now thriving coast to coast, but with 3 Manitoba locations to serve you. 2 in the city, Panet Road, just by their HQ, and out in the west side of the city on Portage Avenue. And, of course, out in Brandon as well for our friends in Westman. This is a great day to get to princessauto.com for Cyber Monday deals. But, of course, they are there for you with the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is waiting for you at Princess Auto. So pop by and see them in store today and shop online 24/7, 365, but especially today for Cyber Monday online at princessauto.com. Our friends at Chud's Power Sports are ready for the holidays and ready for snowmobile season. Of course, Chud's is Manitoba's legendary power sports superstore. In business for over 80 years, the Chud's family has been doing it for Manitobans up in Gimli at the corner of Highway 8 and 231 with the best deals in ATVs, UTVs, snowmobiles, ice houses, Argo and Sasquatch vehicles, and that's just for the winter. If you head on over right now, they've got some great preseason deals, including $500 off timber sled kits, which are pretty wild. That's also from Polaris, and great preseason deals on Polaris and Arctic Cat sleds. In particular, big Polaris event right now. Save up to $3,000 on select Polaris snowmobiles. Take financing as low as 0% APR for 62 months, plus $250 in free accessories. Our friends at Chuds are ready for winter, so lock in preseason deals right now on Polaris and Arctic Cat sleds before the flakes fully fly. Although as I look outside, I don't think this is going anywhere. We're not getting above zero anytime soon, so this snow is pretty much here. Check them out in Gimli, or go to chudspowersports.com to see everything that's going on. And don't forget, they're also the leaders in parts. If you got to fix a sled or something before the start of the season, they'll help you out. And you can go to truenorthparts.com for both parts as well as great deals and clearance sales on gear and accessories before the season as well. Hey, our friends at Manitoba Battery are ready for winter. And listen, it's getting cold right now. We're going to have the coldest temperatures so far of the year coming up this week. As Donnie always says, beat winter before winter beats you. And that means popping by Manitoba Battery and making sure your battery is good for the depth of the Winnipeg winter. Free battery testing at both Manitoba Battery locations. And if you do need a new battery to get you through the winter, you can rest assured you'll be getting the best price, period, as Manitoba Battery is your local leader with the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores. You've also got some great December deals going on right now at your local Manitoba Battery. So pop by and see him on Logan Avenue over on Dover Court Drive. Give him a call or order online at manitobabattery.com. But there you have it, $5 to $10 off power sport batteries, $10 to $20 off booster packs. The ice fishing flasher combo is $99, a perfect gift for that ice fisherman, and a great deal on 12-foot booster cables, and of course, gift cards as well for Manitoba Battery. Power up Christmas, give them the gift of power. Manitoba Battery, order online today at manitobabattery.com. All right, let's welcome in our good friend Mike McIntyre, who has had quite the weekend. Back-to-back, worst team in the NHL, followed by the worst team in the NFL. Mike, what a combo.
Yeah, the tough time to be a sports fan, at least a pro sports fan. They got some good college teams, but imagine being a pro sports fan these days in Nashville. Too bad. It's a great sports city. I mean, it's a great city, period. But yeah, the Predators aren't exactly inspiring a lot of hope on the ice. And my goodness, Huss, let me clearly state, I'm no NFL expert. I play fantasy, so I loosely follow the NFL, but I'm not a hardcore fan at all. So that was honestly my first real viewing of the Tennessee Titans this year. And Cam Ward, oh my God, are they terrible? Like they look like they were trying to lose yesterday. Just stupid penalties and just dumb decisions all over the place. And you could tell that the leash is short for fan tolerance. I think I heard the first smattering that became deafening round of boos like after the second series for the offense. Fans they did not have a lot of patience, unfortunately. And I guess this happens when you've got one win. Their stadium was half empty, and I'd say by about midway through the third quarter it was about 3/4 empty because they were getting their lunch fed to them 25-3. Honestly, it seemed like all that was left by the fourth quarter were Jaguars fans, and there was a lot of them, and me, who had no rooting interest, but I had paid for the ticket, and
good
my
seats
flight,
still available. You can move down.
My flight wasn't until 6:30, so I was in no rush to leave there, and I was almost amused by all that was going on around me. Yeah, they're a mess, and I mean, I guess they'll get a great draft pick. Who knows what they'll do with it? But I don't know. Cam Ward might be playing. Actually, I was going to say he might be playing in the CFL pretty soon. I'm not even sure he could compete right now in the CFL. He looked absolutely lost in the wilderness out there, a deer in headlights.
Yikes. Well, as the one of the dummies that thought that would be a close game and took Tennessee +6, that was like going through it all over again. Although that's not a game that you want to have to watch on your own volition.
No.
Although I respect you going and doing it, Mike. Listen, I kind of want to look ahead to this week and certainly talk about your conversation with Kevin Cheveldayoff. But let's just quickly hit the weekend. A performance that got Scott Arniel hot enough to go somewhere where he really hasn't been so far this year, really calling out his team, mentioning some guys didn't show up. I mean, all but naming Dylan DeMello without naming Dylan DeMello when you asked him about Elias Salmonson. Just an ugly, ugly Black Friday game. Really leaving their young goaltender somewhat out to dry at times. And I thought Milic really hung in there for the first 50 minutes or so of the game. And then it obviously sort of blew up on he and his team in the end. But, you know, we've been waiting for this team to show something. And again, it was against a Nashville team that is in free fall right now, it seems. But they got a win. They got a couple goals from players that hadn't scored in forever, which is basically everyone that's not on that top line. And most importantly, stop the bleeding with 2 points. I mean, just thoughts on the weekend, Mike, for the Winnipeg Jets before we get to tonight in Buffalo.
Yeah, it was definitely extreme ends of the spectrum there. You know, the Jets were in that game against Carolina. It was 1-1 with under 9 minutes left in the third. But they were only in it in score alone. I mean, the metrics were terrible. They were getting absolutely caved in. Thomas Milic had been excellent. And yeah, then the roof caved in, or the floor went out, whatever you want to use, whatever term. And it's too bad for Milic that his final numbers ended up not looking that great with the 4 spot. I mean, even that last goal he gave up, where the Jets were just, you know, it looked like they just wanted to get on the plane at that point. And I won't say they quit in front of them, but they definitely weren't paying attention to detail.
Yeah, they were paying attention to the scoreboard and how many seconds left in the game to get them out of there on that plane.
And so they did kind of throw their young goalie to the wolves, and, you know, they got what they deserved, which was a loss. They didn't deserve to get a single point out of that game, and they didn't. But you're right. I mean, the reaction from Scott Arniel post-game in chatting with me, where he flat out said we had guys that didn't show up to start the game. That's some pretty strong condemnation. And, you know, he's saying that about veteran guys who should know better, and you expect better, quite frankly. So, you know, that was interesting to hear Scott Arniel go there. And, you know, that's a tool that a coach has in his toolkit, if you will. You can't use it very often, and you damn well better get the desired response, because if you don't, like if you come out and undress your team publicly like that, and then if they don't respond the next game, well, now you've got bigger problems than anyone imagined. So I think there was a lot of maybe holding of breath in Jets land, and that might extend all the way to, you know, within the organization. Like, oh boy, how is this team going to respond to the strongest criticism of the year and the biggest adversity of the year? So to their credit, I mean, they could only play the game that was in front of them on Saturday night. Like, they couldn't go make a statement on Saturday against the Colorado Avalanche. You know, and maybe it worked out for the best that the Jets' next game, the response game, was against the worst team in the league. Now, granted, Nashville had won 2 in a row, so they were playing a little bit better. And the Jets never seemed to play all that well in Nashville. But, you look at how they started the game. What was it, 47 seconds? Surprise, surprise. It was the top line that opened the scoring. But, to me, that game really changed on Saturday, Huss, when Nino Niederreiter scores in the final minute of the first, for a couple of reasons. All of a sudden, they had a 2-goal cushion, which they haven't had in forever. So it gave them a little more breathing room. But it was the secondary scoring that they so desperately needed. And, it's funny, I had a great chat on Thursday in Raleigh with Cole Perfetti, who had been getting a lot of chances. And Cole said, once that secondary scoring starts to come, the floodgates are going to open. I wouldn't constitute what happened Saturday as a flood, but it was at least a trickle. And Cole Perfetti then gets on the board, and deservedly so, because he'd been all around the net. He had a lot of great chances in Carolina, and he finally gets rewarded. And so, we'll see what that can do now going forward starting tonight. But, all in all, it was a very good response by the Jets. And even when that 3-0 lead became 3-2 early in the third, and you're like, oh boy, this fragile team, are they going to find a way to blow this? And if they do, my goodness, what is that going to do for the morale and the psyche and all that? Well, they didn't blow it. And in fact, and so that was the most impressive part, that the Predators were coming on strong. And, Kyle Connor gets the big goal off the deflection off the Luke Shen shot. And the Jets kind of just calmly went about the rest of that period, a professional kind of victory that they so desperately needed. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens tonight. By no means, and nobody was doing victory laps after that game. Nobody was popping champagne bottles, and no one was declaring, "We're out of the woods, we're fixed." Like, we're going to need to see a little more evidence here. And, that sets up what I would say is another very important game. The Jets just can't afford to rest on their laurels and go right back to kind of the same level of lack of execution. They got to follow that up tonight, and we'll see if they're up.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, they're doing it. They're going up against Buffalo, who, I mean, it's such a weird team. They
mystery box.
They beat the Minnesota Wild in Minnesota in their last time out. They beat the Carolina Hurricanes last week. They put up 9 against the Chicago Blackhawks, and yet they've also had some really ugly losses, including the home to the Calgary Flames in the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, they are what they are. For the Winnipeg Jets, though, there still needs to be a focus and a real sense of urgency to play this game with the importance that it is, Mike, because as we've said right now, like this, to me, this week is so crucial. You look at where the standings are right now, and if they're to win this game tonight, I guess Utah, who's played more games, could actually also win, and they would technically be out of a playoff spot. But you're right there. Yeah. And listen, you've got Buffalo, you've got Montreal, who's been struggling, Buffalo again at home, and then a real tough spot on the calendar going to Edmonton, who will have been sitting around waiting for them with the quick turnaround onto the road on Saturday night. And then no rest either. Come right back, and you start off at home on the 8th and going forward. So to me, Mike, this, and this is not to diminish a Buffalo Sabres team, but you're not going into Colorado. This is a team that you have beaten before, that if you play to your level, you feel like you should be able to get 2 points. And considering the way things have started without Connor Hellebuck and the 4-game losing streak and really the entire month of November, absolutely imperative for this team to start the new month off in a much better frame of mind and performance on the ice. You were down there this morning, Mike. I mean, how was the morning skate? What did you see and hear from the players? And are things maybe at least a little lighter around them going into this game after finally getting that monkey off their back and a few players doing it at the same time?
Yeah, it certainly was. Felt like a less tense room. I had a great 10 or 11 minute sit down with one-on-one with Adam Lowry. I figured, if there's one guy that maybe on the team to kind of take the temperature right now of this group, it's the captain. And I'm writing that up this afternoon. But Adam Lowry was very critical of himself and his own game. He's 12 games into his return. I think he flat out said something like, if you look at our record since I've come back, it would sort of suggest that I haven't been very good at all. That's not to put this at all on Adam Lowry, of course, but I think he's one of the guys that's been going through it. And so certainly I think there's some, there's a couple monkeys that got that got knocked off the backs of players the other day. That'll have some guys feeling a little looser. Eric Comrie, he gets the monkey off his back because at some point he's probably starting to think, am I ever going to win a game as a starting goalie? Lose the first three when you're thrust into that new role now. So yeah, I think guys are playing a little looser, but they recognize that they've created quite a hole for themselves, and it's going to take a lot more digging to get out of that hole. So, there's some other players that they're still carrying around the monkey. It might be bigger than a monkey right now. It might be a full-blown like orangutan or an ape, given how long some of them have gone without scoring. So, there's a few other guys that, whether it's Gus Nyquist, whether it's Morgan Barron, who had that great start to the year, he's gone, and I know he had a bit of an injury to deal with there, but he's gone ice cold. Vlad Nemestikov, although that line I thought with Tays and Perfetti and Nemestikov, a lot of good signs from them the other night, but Nemestikov's gone cold. Tays gets the assist the other day, but so there's a lot of guys that could use some things to go right for them. The good news for the Jets is, they've maybe silenced a little bit of that external noise. And yeah, I saw a group that looked a little looser, a little more comfortable. They're going to go with the exact same lineup tonight as they did against the Predators. We shouldn't be that surprised. They don't have a lot of options right now to play with anyways, with Pionk still being hurt. Cole Koepke is the only forward option. I was surprised that he didn't go in Nashville. I really was. But now that they won that game, I see why they probably are now going to keep him out. And I know fans, a lot of folks want to get Elias back in that lineup. Are we surprised that they're going to keep Luke Schenn in? Him and Sandberg, they had 5 assists between the two of them the other night. And, I thought Luke Schenn, who has not had a good season at all, had his most impactful game. Couple big shot blocks, couple thunderous hits that he threw. The Jets were very physical the other day. That's one thing Adam Lowry talked to me about, that he's getting more comfortable now, starting to throw his weight around, that he thinks his line with Niederreiter and Iafallo is starting to look and play more like they need to. And that's a line that really can drive the bus for the Jets. I mean, the Scheifele line will always be the line that's going to put the most pucks in the net. When that Lowry line can start to tilt the ice, and I think we're starting to see that a bit because Lowry himself is getting more comfortable. That's the identity line of the Jets. And I think they feel they're starting to at least get some of their identity back.
Yeah, listen, and you got a team like Nashville that has just been so poor. I mean, I think to their fans, especially at home ice, they're trying to show that they give a bleep. I mean, just trying to show that they care. And listen, that stand fight with McCarron early on, I mean, the hits from Luke Schenn, I thought that really helped the Jets. I mean, just be more engaged in this game. Yes. Now, I mean, it's maybe another conversation of whether you need that to sort of be in the game, but we all know that the Jets have been off of it for a while. And I thought that helped maybe get a few more guys into the game. And, anyways, I mean, that is something that I think I'd like to see them do a lot more, because it has seemed like at times when they have been losing, I don't want to say there's been a lack of passion, but like some energy has sort of been,
Yes.
it hasn't been there. And I mean, there's not a lot of guys on this team that are those, like a Brandon Tanev, an energy guy to go in and sort of do things like that. So it really takes everybody. But back up to Elias. Yeah. Back to Elias. I actually had a lot of time for parts of his game in Carolina.
Yep.
You know, there were some things that he was able to do that, frankly, we, outside of Josh Morrissey, there's not many guys that have that sort of club in their bag, if you will. So I'm certainly hoping we'll see some more of him during this call up at a time. And I guess if they keep winning and keeping the same lineup, I'll be able to handle that. But just thoughts on him, and has he shown enough that, you know, maybe there is some more time at the NHL before a potential return with Neil Pionk coming back?
Yeah, you know, I mentioned earlier that it's too bad Thomas Milich's sort of final stat line ended up what it was, because I don't think if you just looked at his numbers, at Milich's numbers, you'd say, oh, he wasn't very good. And I think any of us who watched that game would say that Milich deserved a little better, that his stat line should look a little better. I would include Elias Salomonsson in that category as well. Because if you just look at his raw numbers, 2 games, what's he, -5? You know, that now he was on for the empty netter the other night, which tells you, Huss, that the coaching staff liked at least some of what they were seeing from him. You're not throwing a kid out when you're, you know, it was 3-1. The Jets were pressing, and Elias Salomonsson got a shift. And, you know, it ended up with an empty netter to make it 4-1. But that's a good sign. And I think it was well-deserved, because he, as you say, the sort of club in the bag, he's got some really nice offensive instincts. You know, he nearly scored, rang that one off the crossbar early in the third period. But that wasn't just a fluke play. He actually made a really nice read to jump into the play there and put himself in a good position to get a good scoring chance. And the Jets, you know, especially when Neil Pionk is sidelined, the Jets don't have a lot of that in their lineup. So, you know, I know that the final numbers would suggest, oh, he's not been good. I would disagree. I think he's been a lot better than what just his bare bones stats would suggest. That being said, there's always going to be a learning curve with young players. And, you know, did he make some mistakes? Sure. You know, it was a tough debut the other night for him in Washington, because, you know, it's unfortunate that one puck that he sort of misplayed at the Capitals blue line ended up with the Connor McMichael breakaway. Now, I would argue it wasn't the best pass that Cole Perfetti had given him.
I totally agree.
It was a bit of a grenade. And, you know, of course he's going to get caught flat-footed there, because there's no reason for him to be in motion where he would have been in a position to catch McMichael. Like, that was just a tough break. And you hate to see that happen in a guy's first game. He said all the right things when I talked to him after the game. And I'll say this, I mean, good on the Jets that they went back to him the next night. I think the worst thing they could have done for the kid's confidence, Huss, would have been to yank him out of the lineup after that first game, because what message would you have been sending? Like, sure, you can come out and say, yeah, we feel bad for him and we told him to, you know, just brush it off. If you pull him out of the lineup the very next game, you're saying, yeah, that wasn't good enough. Now, they did pull him out of the lineup after his second game. You know, I get why they went with Luke Schenn against the Predators. He first of all, he's got a connection there. He's played against, you know, played for Nashville. The Predators are always going to be a team that plays on it with an edge and on the edge. And we saw that. And to your point, Huss, you were bang on. They were going to come out with piss and vinegar and try and run the Jets out of the building the way they have in the past. they've heard all the noise around them. Most dysfunctional team in the league. They got to blow it up. Fire Barry Trotz. Fire Andrew Brunette. Trade Stamkos. Trade Marchessault. So, yeah, you're going to put Schenn in to maybe try and deal with some of that. And then Schenn goes and plays, again, by his standards so far this year, a pretty good game. And the team wins. So I get why they're now going to stick with that lineup tonight. Would I like to see Elias Salomonsson back in the lineup as early as tonight? Absolutely. I hope, to your point, and I agree, I hope he gets back in before he inevitably, is probably going to go back down to the Manitoba Moose once Neil Pionk is healed up, once Hayden Fleury is back. But I would like to see some more from him for sure.
Well, you know what? And this is a good little transition over to your conversation with Cheveldayoff, because, over the course of the past week, especially like with Elias getting into a couple of the games, and, even Milic, with the kind of the energy that he brought, albeit not at all reciprocated by his teammates, unfortunately. Yeah. I couldn't help but think at times when the Jets have looked slow and, sort of behind it, that as much as it's great to add some veterans that you can count on in the playoffs, like right now, I would make the argument that this team needs a little bit more youth and energy and wheels in the lineup. And, I've been thinking about Brad Lambert quite a bit last week. Now, I also saw on the weekend at the Moose, a terrible, careless giveaway that ended up going back the other way, ended up in the net. And that's no way to earn yourself the trust to go back into the league. But I kind of feel like maybe this team has gone so far to one end that they're actually missing some of that. Certainly we felt the foot speed hasn't been there at times with particular players, Mike. That was one of the things I know you talked about with Chevy. By the way, awesome sit down with them to kind of hear that from the GM. And I think, credit to your employers for having you there on the road with the team, unlike so many other media markets. But, for people that haven't read, it's up in the Free Press right now, and it's in today's paper, the sit-down with Kevin Cheveldayoff on some of the topics he covered, but specifically that balance between the veteran team that they have, opportunity, and production from young players in the NHL.
Yeah, and, Kevin Cheveldayoff, I flat out said to him, your team looks slow. And he agreed that they're playing slow. Now, I wouldn't say Kevin Cheveldayoff completely agreed with my take that the Jets, or it's not even my take, my presentation to him of the idea, are the Jets too slow, too old and too slow to compete in the modern NHL? I said to him, the league is getting faster and younger than ever. Just look at some of the more dynamic teams out there, the Anaheims and the Chicagos and the San Jose's. Now, those are teams that have all drafted really well because they've been terrible for so long. The Jets have not had first and second and third overall picks. They don't have a Macklin Celebrini or a Connor Bedard to throw into their lineup right now. But, I'll give Cheveldayoff credit. He admitted the Jets do look slow and they are playing slow. But he said that he thinks there's a difference between just foot speed and being maybe not the quickest skaters and playing quick. And we talked before the Predators game, and I'll say this, Huss. Now, again, it was one game against the NHL's worst team. I thought the Jets looked a lot faster against Nashville. It's the same team. And in fact, they put Luke Schenn in for Elias Salomonsson. In theory, they should have looked slower as a team. They didn't. They looked faster. Now, part of that is probably because, my goodness, the Predators are a bit of a mess right now. And they are not playing fast themselves. And by contrast, the Jets, they kind of stood out against that. But I think there is something to be said when players are not on the same page, a lack of cohesion, a lack of flow, you're spending so much time in your own end, chasing pucks around. and it looks like the other team's the Harlem Globetrotters and you're the Washington Generals, you're going to look slow. And the Jets have looked really slow. But, when you can get the puck, when you can transition it out of your own end, you can move smartly through the neutral zone. Look at the goal. Look at the Niederreiter goal the other day. Luke Schenn is not a fast player. Nino Niederreiter is not a fast player. But that was a pretty fast play they made. Schenn transitioning the puck, really nice pass to Niederreiter to hit him in stride. Niederreiter had the legs going, and he scores a beautiful goal off the rush. We don't see that kind of goal, certainly not from Niederreiter very often, and we haven't seen it enough from the Jets lately. And so they looked fast on that goal. So, Cheveldayoff's point is we can play faster, even with the group we have here right now. We can play faster. Time will tell if that can be the case. I'll also give, I know we just have a couple minutes left here, Huss, but I'll give Cheveldayoff credit for, I said to him, do you bear some responsibility for the 4 free agent players, the forwards that you signed, Hayes, Nyquist, Pearson, and Koepke? Those guys have 6 combined goals between them. And if you add up their number of games played, they've played a combined 81 games and they have 6 goals. And Cheveldayoff said, yes, absolutely, I do. Now, he gave some background, and his full quote and context is in the piece, but talking about at the time and with what was available to the Jets, they thought they were making some good ads. And to be clear, he's not giving up on them 24 games into the season. I think he still believes those can be very good ads that can make this Jets team better than what they've been so far. But yeah, it was a really interesting talk. The Jets and Cheveldayoff do not normally talk. They don't normally do media at this point in the season. Usually it's training camp and then around the 40 game mark, midway point. But, I put in the request. I figured, started to feel like the sky was falling around this team. There's a lot of noise around the Jets, and I wanted to hear what the GM had to say. And yeah, we're on the road here, so it certainly worked out well that they adhered to the request. And I think he had a lot to say. I asked him about the Lambert situation, and the use of young players. So again, there'll be people that read his comments and don't like what he said or don't agree with it. I'll give him credit for answering questions, and I'd like to think I threw, they weren't softballs. That I was throwing some tougher questions at him, and whether you agree or disagree with his answers, he stood in there and took some swings. But clearly, he still believes in this team. That hasn't changed, and we shouldn't be surprised. Kevin Cheveldayoff is not deliberately trying to build a bad hockey team. That would be against his own self-interest. Whether you think he's going about it the right way, that's certainly up for debate. But there's no question Kevin Cheveldayoff thought the team he put together would be better than 13-11. And I guess we shouldn't be surprised that he's not waving the white flag. And he did tell me there's been a lot more meetings with coaches as they try to find their way out of the wilderness here. So, I loved his quote where he said, it's not like we're just sitting back. I think he said having a beer and a cigarette and saying everything will be just fine. I said to him, well, maybe back when you played, that would have been the modus operandi, because a lot of guys we're having beers and darts between games or even during games. It's a different world out there now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, I mean, it said the title of the article says the answer to the Jets' woes has to come from within. It is interesting to we'll see what happens with Elias. What happens now with the Moose and whether there's an opportunity for one of these guys to come up. I mean, what you'd really like is one of these young players to have already in their chances to play, show that they're just too good to go back down and help the team win. And I don't know that that was really the case for Chibrikov or Ford or Lambert in particular, who certainly has the speed that you would love to be added to the lineup. And we'll see how this goes. If they can get a few wins, the noise will quiet down. If this continues, despite the win in Nashville, it'll get even louder. Folks, it's up right now at freepress.com and in the Winnipeg Free Press. The entire full-length interview with General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff from Mike McIntyre. Mike, enjoy this one tonight. Travel safely back to the Peg, and we'll see you later on this week down at the rink.
You betcha, Huss. Looking forward to it. Thanks.
Appreciate it. There is Mike McIntyre. Hey, we will get to the Coolbet lines a little later on, but I will remind you that up until 3 p.m., if you're with us live, in the exclusives, there's that special flash sale just for an hour. Kyle Connor, anytime goal tonight, boosted to 2-1. Low limit on that, but it's fun to play. So if you are looking at a Kyle Connor prop tonight, do that before 3 o'clock over in the Coolbet exclusives. Of course, we hit the lines earlier today for Clean Line, plumbing, heating, and electrical. No changes to those lines tonight. Of course, every game day and practice day as well, we bring you the lines courtesy of Clean Line, Winnipeg's leading residential and commercial plumbing, heating, and electrical service dealer. Your one-stop shop with over 40 years of experience, locally owned and operated, and of course, proud sponsors of the Winnipeg Jets, official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. And as you can see with the captain right there, captain approved, bringing the heat for winter for all your plumbing, heating, and electrical needs. Contact them online at cleanline.ca. And don't forget, they've got 24/7 emergency services. You can save the number 204-500-2001. Our friends at BP are ready for the holidays, gang. Don't forget, we've got our WST viewing party for the holidays on December 17th. That's 2 weeks Wednesday. We're doing it at Boston Pizza Keniston, taking on the St. Louis Blues. But right now, if you need some tasty gifts for family, friends, teachers, coaches, grab some Boston Pizza gift cards. For every $50 BP gift card, you'll receive a free $10 promo gift card. And if you're doing a large gift card order for your office, you'll get an additional 10% bonus on orders of $1,000 or more. If your holiday party or catering you need, BP's got their new holiday menu featuring crispy chicken vodka penne, pepperoni stinger pizza, and the amazing new stuffed crust matzo sticks. And if you want to sample the stuffed crust matzo sticks and BP holiday drinks and support a great cause, come down to BP Keniston this Saturday, December 6th, for Fill the Freightliner. They'll be collecting food, winter clothing, donations all day in support of Solo Mission. Games prizes, chance to win 2 tickets to see the Jets and Leafs on January 17th. 11 to 5, BP Keniston on Saturday for Fill the Freightliner. All right. Just before we bring in Joe Yerdon, don't forget, this is the final day of the Black Friday savings at Royal Sports. They started it on Friday. It goes through until today. So if you want to get in on some of those incredible deals, hockey sticks, equipment, shoes, attire, merch, tons on the Kings Skate, Snow, and Surf side, it is all there right now, especially. I mean, they've got over $250,000 worth of hockey sticks on for up to 50%, and Warrior player equipment, 50% as well. So if you have needs, get down there. And of course, they've got you covered with all of your Jets gear, Bomber gear, NHL merch, NFL, you name it, they've got it. But right now, through today, with over $250,000 worth of sticks on the floor, the Black Friday sale concludes at Royal Sports in Kings Skate, Snow, and Surf, 750 Pembina Highway. And of course, you can check them out online at Royal Sports Winnipeg on Instagram for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, we're going to head out to Buffalo right now. First, though, give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right. Of course, 6:30 puck drop tonight. Prime Video, Jets and Sabres. And always great when the Jets play the Sabres because it gives us an opportunity to welcome in our old pal Joe Yerdon to join us from Buffalo. Joe, what's going on? How are you?
Doing good, Huss. Good to talk to you again, man. It's been a hot minute, and it's a cold minute out here. Winter finally struck.
Yeah, you guys have lots of snow there?
Not yet, but supposedly it's coming tonight. So hopefully everybody gets out of town before things kick up. This morning it'll be it's overdue as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, we're sort of lucky right now. We still don't have really any significant, although it's not getting above zero. So I mean, anything that comes is sticking around. But man, I was seeing like what our friends down in like Illinois and Iowa were dealing with this weekend. I'm like, hey, we'll take it. We'll take an extra week without tons of snow everywhere. That being said, unfortunately for both of these teams that'll be competing tonight, there's been too many losses as of late. I mean, the Jets broke their 4-game losing streak against Nashville on Saturday, but still come in a bit of a funk. Like Buffalo, I feel for these guys because they go in before they've even played one game of 82 with 14 years of baggage. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like in the first week of the season that sort of came out. Now, since then, there have been some ups, there's been some downs, but like where are these Buffalo Sabres right now as we go into action against the Winnipeg Jets, who are in a spot far, far from where they were last season and have been for the last number of years?
Yeah, it's the Sabres have had injury stuff going on this whole season, basically. It started with just, different guys, popping in and out of lineup. I'm not talking, insignificant players. I'm talking, new guy like Michael Kesselring, missed some time to start, came back. He's been out again. Josh Norris, who's just been plagued with injuries his entire career, got hurt. I think it was late in the preseason, like right before the season starting. So he's been out. He's coming back tonight. He's going to be in the starting lineup tonight. So that's very encouraging for them. Zach Benson's been in and out. You guys know him pretty well from his junior days. And it's just been, different guys cycling in and out. Rasmus Dahlin had, that horrible thing happening with his fiance over the summer where that's been weighing heavily on him. That's, he won't admit that it's had an effect on his game, but it has. How could it not? But just tons of stuff going on with this crew, and it's difficult. It's difficult to try to navigate those waters, but they've done reasonably well enough managing it. But every time they win a couple in a row, it's like, all right, corner turn, and then you lose a couple in a row, and it's like, well, here we go again, because everybody's waiting for the big losing streak to sink them like last season, and they already had a big losing streak. They lost 5 in a row at one point when things got dark, let me tell you. But, since then they've won, 5 of 8 since that losing streak. So that's better. But boy, did they need that win over Minnesota on Saturday. They just to kind of turn things around, especially with a long road trip coming up.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, that's the exact kind of place that the Jets were in, just looking to find a result, get 2 points, and move on to the next one with a bit better of a feeling. And you look at what the team has done all year long. I mean, they started off 0-3. They bounced back with a couple wins. And, I mean, they've won 2 in a row 4 times. They can never quite get to that third win and really start stringing some results together. And I imagine, like, I always, when I have you on, I love the ethos of Buffalo sports fans is in, we know it's a miserable life, but this is the one that we've chosen, and we push forward. They deserve so much better, and it seems like the players kind of know that, and that can take a toll on them even more so than an average team when you, as happens to pretty much everyone over the course of 82, go through a tough week.
Yeah, and it's, the weight of that drought, like, it doesn't exactly sit on the players' shoulders because they don't bear the brunt of the entire history.
Some of them were mighty mites when it started.
Right. Right. I mean, think of Zach Benson, who's 20. He was 5, 5-6 years old when this whole thing started. I mean, it's pretty crazy. But for guys that have been here for a few years, think of Darlene, Tage Thompson, those guys, they don't bear that whole history, but they've got not an insignificant part of it now too, because they've been here for a few years, and they've gone through a couple of head coaches, and it's the sort of thing that if it's not at the front of your mind, it's in the back someplace, and every loss it just comes right out right in front of you. And it's when those bad losses happen at home that it gets magnified by exponentially, because they lose to New Jersey 5-0, and the fans are chatting to get the GM fired. Some fans were chatting to they want Terry Pegula to sell the team, and fans are just booing to boo because they're sick of it, honestly. And I think everybody understands why. You don't want to see losing, and every bad effort or effort that looks bad, and they just get absolutely crushed for it. It weighs a lot on the guys' shoulders and heads about it, because it's tough.
Joe, some big moves in the offseason, in particular the trade of JJ Peterka. Tell us about the return from the Peterka deal and how that's looking in the lineup right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, Josh Doan's been awesome. The big story out of that trade was how Bill Armstrong didn't want to give up Josh Doan. And, that was the last guy they wanted to give away in that trade. Kesselring, they understood. They knew why he was going to be a sought-after player. He's big, he's strong, he shoots the puck as hard as Tage Thompson does, which is remarkable, frankly. He fights occasionally, like a big, tough defenseman. You got to love it. But Josh Doan, I think, was a little bit kind of not a mysterious thing, because I think everybody knows Shane Doan, obviously. And, that's a big shadow to try to live in. But Josh Doan's been awesome. I mean, he hovers around the net. He's a beloved player. I mean, when Utah was here earlier this year, the number of Utah guys you saw waiting around on the hallway, right before Sabres morning skate was over, looking around, hey, is Donor here? Where's Donor? I got to see him. That's the kind of presence that they added to this locker room, which is huge. I mean, they needed a positive guy in the room like that in the worst way. And he's really helped lighten the room a bit, by just being him. And that's been a huge part of it. And I feel terrible for Michael Kesselring, because he's a guy who's never had to deal with injuries before. And, he comes in and, he was kind of dealing with something nagging, and they're like, all right, let's get it fixed up. And then gets banged up again in a game. I think he blocked a shot off his foot or something like that. And, he's been out of the lineup for a little bit here. And it's just, like one of those seasons where it's tough to look at it and go like, boy, is this a cursed season at this point? But he's back skating again. So that's helpful. He'll probably be joining the team, I would imagine, sometime in the near future. So it's positive, but he's been good when he's been in, but it's just, he hasn't been in a lot. So that's tough.
We all know where the Sabres sit right now. And as I said, the East, you can change your plight very quickly in the East because of how packed it is. And everyone goes to overtime. Everyone gets points. I mean, it's the regulation losses that will kill you. But the expectation is that this team does something moving forward. How much pressure is right now on the GM and the head coach?
I think the pressure on Kevin Adams is massive, because there's a lot of things to worry about. It's the team success, for one. I mean, that's the biggest one. Missing the playoffs again when he's been the GM for 5-6 years now. This is his 6th season. So, I mean, if you go 6 years without playoffs and your job is to get the team to the playoffs, that's a bad sign. But he also has Alex Tuck to be worried about. He's going to be a UFA this summer if he's not signed to an extension. They spent a good part of the summer trying to work something out, get something done. They still haven't gotten it done. Now the clock's ticking a lot louder, because if things do continue to go south for this team and things don't improve, you're going to have to trade him because it's really hard to sell anybody on staying around when you keep missing the playoffs.
How unpopular will that be in Buffalo? I mean, he's a local guy. He came in as part of the Eichel Hall and has been really good for Buffalo. And he's not a guy that needs to be on the first line to produce. Character guy. If he won't stick around at a certain point, who will? And what does that say about the importance of getting it done?
I think if Alex doesn't, if they don't get something done with Alex, because I can't say if Alex doesn't sign, because if they make him a bad offer and he doesn't sign that, then whose fault is that actually? But I think if that doesn't get done and they're forced to trade him, to me that's as damning as can be on Kevin Adams, because Adams's mantra ever since he took over as GM in 2020 has, I want guys who want to be here. Well, you traded for Alex Tuch, who wanted to be here, and he's from Syracuse. He grew up a giant Sabres fan. You couldn't ask for a better guy to fit your mantra, and then you don't get a contract worked out. And I get it. Like if he's asking for like $15 million a year, then it's like, well, all right, like let's dial it back. But you're at the point with him now where he's a 30-goal guy. He's a great two-way player. He's great shorthanded, great on the power. He does all these outstanding things. He's a big body forward. Get it done, and the price keeps going up the more guys keep re-signing with their teams. And you see the Kempe deal get done. You can see all these deals get done, and you're like, price keeps going up. It's not going to get cheaper. And if Buffalo's trying to save a buck here or two, I don't know if that's the way. Well,
to be honest, even if they're giving what most people would feel is free market value, the thing that you have to worry about the most is a guy like Tuch, who probably would have more reason to stick it out and stay here. I mean, if he's been here for 3 or 4 years and it's been miserable the whole time, and he's thinking like, okay, I only got so many years left in my career. As much as I love the area and love playing in front of friends and family, like, can I hack this for another 3 or 4 seasons? I mean, if he decides to go another way and see what's out there, it also essentially tells you all you need to know about just where this franchise is right now in the hierarchy of the NHL.
Yeah, and it would make coming to Buffalo even harder. I mean, it's already a tough sell in the first place just because it's Buffalo. You're playing there in the winter. The whole thing, the tax stuff, New York's not, isn't exactly, low taxes here, but everything's already, a lot of stuff is already working against Buffalo, and it's a lot easier to sell that if you're winning. But if you're talking about joining a team that's, 15 years out of the last time they're in the playoffs or 14, whatever it is after this season, if they still haven't done it, oh boy, it becomes a point where you couldn't blame Alex if he left. And then you're like, well, who in the right mind would come here dealing with this if it's the same people in charge trying to run the show and they can't get it right after all this time?
Well, we're going to see a couple pretty desperate teams, I think, tonight. The Sabres will get Josh Norris back. That'll be a nice boost for them. And now we have to move forward. Drop the puck on the first of 2 games in 4 days between these two teams. Folks, if you want more on the Sabres, check out Joe's site, notedhockey.com. The noted jerk himself, Joe Yerdon. Thanks for doing this, pal. Enjoy the game tonight. Always great to catch up.
Yeah, good to talk to you, Huss. Good to see you again.
Hey, right on. There's Joe Yerdon. All right, guys. Listen, we're going to get to Coolbet lines in a minute, but again, you got 7 minutes if you want to take up that Kyle Connor flash special. It's on right now until the top of the hour. Thanks again to Joe for jumping on the program. All right, let's get to why not question of the day for not AutoCorp at Waverly and McGillivray. And, I want to get your thoughts on Elias Salmonson. I know there were some folks that were putting it in earlier, but what did you think from Elias in his first 2 games with the Winnipeg Jets? Listen, it wasn't perfect by any means, and young players going up in against 2 good teams, Washington and Carolina, not going to be easy, especially when you consider the way the rest of the team played around him at times. But let us know what you think about Elias in the chat. We'll get to fan feedback coming back in just a couple of minutes. Remo, what about you? Where were you at on Elias's first couple games in the show?
Yeah, I think he showed some flashes. Unfortunately, he was involved with that play on the when his first game with the pass from Perfetti and, had the goal against. But as you said, the confidence grows with time, and I thought maybe he'd get a couple more games. We'll see what happens. But right now they have Shannon. He thought this would be a good opportunity to go against Buffalo, but the lineup won on Saturday. Shannon has 2 assists. I think it would be tough to take him out after that. But I think he's deserved another look, as you said earlier with Mike. Deserved a bit better in those 2 games, but when you look on the whole, yes, the -5, not ideal, but one of those coming on an empty netter, and so we'll see what happens here, how they play it out. I don't know if he's going to get in again, but I think he's earned another look.
I will go on the record saying I certainly hope that he doesn't go back to the Moose without at least getting another game or 2 during this time that Pionk is out. And to be honest, even if you really wanted to get Shen in the lineup for tonight, okay, fine. Colin Miller has sat a number of games this year. Stick him out with Stan and see how that pairing looks if Shen is playing with Dylan Sandberg. Let's get over to some fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market, where what you see is what you pay, no added fees at fansfirst.ca, and a great spot to sell additional tickets as well. I see Rob Mahoney from a little earlier saying Elias should absolutely be in the lineup. I see the Crease Singer from Earth. The Moose are doing well, so some of the guys who might be able to play with the Jets are doing well, and the Moose won a cup too. That's great, but listen, if there's a very clear hierarchy in these organizations. If there is a player that is at the AHL level that you think that's going to help you win a hockey game in the NHL, he's up and he's playing. I mean, there is it's 2 sides. I mean, you want to give people opportunities. And listen, there wasn't one for Elias. It's sort of a different conversation with him as opposed to the forwards. But, I do think back to, that first 18, 20 games of the season, when Chibrikov was in, didn't do a lot with his time. Parker Ford, I thought, had some strong games towards the end, a few mistakes that ended up in the back of the net that I think were bad. And listen, Brad Lambert's the guy that, of the entire thing that the Jets seem to be missing more often than not tonight, which is a real player with game-breaking speed. Brad is that guy, but to be honest, was pretty underwhelming in those 4 games. That was only 4 games, sure. But, I mean, you only get so many chances to show that, you're better than the other guy beside you, and you get in there. So I hope he can put together a string of 2 or 3 really strong weeks with the Jets and just say, listen, I'm playing too well for you to keep me down here, and then see what happens. That has not happened so far. Mike, Elias should be in the lineup. It's not a question, according to Rob Mahoney. Comet says Sheng brings in some intangibles that Buff brought, but is past his prime now. There's only one Buff. I mean, it's hard to compete everyone. And Scardy says, I think the Jets have a heavier, more playoff-ready team. They just have to make the playoffs. And obviously the run. And Phyllis said, the fact that Elias got shifts with Morrissey tells me he'll be in again soon. You can, BA Split says Lambert has good speed. That's it. Well, you got to have more than wheels to play in the NHL, and hopefully we'll see that some point soon. Keep it coming in. Fan feedback brought to you by Fans First. By fans, for fans, no fees. Check out the site today over at fansfirst.ca. Remo, we'll get to the Coolbet lines in just a minute. You catch much football on the weekend?
I did. It was a pretty weird slate of games with the Thanksgiving. Definitely. And they put all the good teams on the Thursday. There was some, low-tier quarterbacks in action, including, especially if you're a Vikings fan, was the guy Max Brosman? Was that who that guy was?
Max Brosman.
So rough one for him. How about Tyrod with the Jets carrying them? But the big upset, you're going to have to adjust your Chud's Power Sports Power Poll. The Rams have been up there, number one. Big upset by Carolina, who's had a couple upsets this year, only to lose to the Saints at home and wreck a number of people's survivors. So that was probably the game of the day yesterday. Actually, the Sunday Nighter was pretty good too.
Sunday Nighter was amazing. The Sunday Nighter, an incredible game. I was expecting it to be a bit of a dud. It was anything but. The Broncos beating the Commanders 27-26 with an unsuccessful 2-point conversion for the Commanders in overtime. Great play by Nick Bonito, the Broncos linebacker, to bat the pass down and not get it going. But I'm just looking at straight up underdogs that won on the weekend, or this week in the NFL. Packers, Cowboys, and Bengals. All three underdogs, all won straight up. The Bears on that Friday afternoon game made it 4-0 for underdogs winning straight up. You had the Texans winning in Indy. You had the Jets beating the Falcons. You had the Panthers shocking the Rams, and then kind of chalked the rest of the way with the Seahawks crushing Minnesota, the Bills beating Pittsburgh, although that was a much closer game than it sort of looked like. The Steelers did absolutely nothing in the second half, but it was a tight game, and the Steelers were actually ahead after the first half. Chargers cruise against the Raiders, and the Commanders go up and beat the Broncos, or fall by 1 to the Broncos, so they do cover the spread. We got an interesting one tonight. The 10-2 Patriots versus the 2-10 Giants, Remis. Heading over to Coolbet to get into the Coolbet lines. This one is still at 7. Yeah, 7 points. The line hasn't moved all week long. And I know there's been tons of covers this week. I think I do like New England. I think just a much more complete team. It'll be good for Jackson Dart to get back in tonight. He's fun to watch. I'm not sure whether they win. And I am kind of feeling that the Patriots take care of business and cover the spread. If you look in the exclusives right now, first of all, the Coolbet exclusives, I guess 3 o'clock is come and gone. So yeah, the Kyle Connor is no longer there. I've put together 2 for tonight. First of all, for the Jets. Jets to win, Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele each to get 2 points, Velarde and Morrissey each to get a point, and the Jets to win, it's plus 775. It's far too hard right now to guess on which guy from the bottom 3 lines might score than just lean on the guys that seemingly do every night. So we're going to go with 2 points each from Connor and Scheifele, 1 each or more from Velarde and Morrissey and the Jets to win. That's plus 775. And then for the NFL game tonight, we're riding with Travion Henderson, 65 or more rushing yards and an anytime touchdown. We've got Drake May to go under 23.5 yards rushing. I just don't think that they'll want him running the ball very much, and I don't think they'll need to. And the Patriots to cover 6.5. That one is at plus 875. Both in the exclusives right now. Jake and the boys have a bunch of others for the NFL. And we've got, what do we have tonight for games as well? Here we got Jersey at home. Jersey finally lost at home. Their first regulation loss at home of the season. They're minus 147 favorites at home against the Blue Jackets. Philly minus 135. Dan Vladar's had a great season so far. He's back in net for the Flyers. They're minus 135. The Jets are minus 102. Actually a slight underdog in this game against the Buffalo Sabres at minus 115. We've got the Ducks plus 125 against the Blues at minus 147. And the Utah Mammoth, minus 164 favorites in San Jose against the Sharks. Sharks plus 140. Yeah, I think I like the Devils and the Flyers tonight. This Jets game makes me nervous, although I'm being cautiously optimistic moving forward. I don't mind the Ducks, Remis, to be honest, at plus 125 against the Blues, even though they are playing on back-to-backs. They've just got so much youthful energy in that lineup. I have a feeling they'll be dangerous, and they've certainly been better than the Blues all season.
Yeah, the Blues are huge favorites here at home. I think they have an implied team total of 3.7, which is crazy for a team with Dabo or Dvorsky on the first power play. So we'll see. The Ducks they're not starting Dostal. It's backup. And for them,
it's not Mrazek, it's Ville Husso.
Yeah, Ville Husso
going out. Former Blue, if I'm not mistaken.
Revenge game narrative. There you go.
Ville Husso revenge game?
Although he was on Detroit in between. One underdog I'm looking at is the Sharks against Utah. Askarov and net, man. He's been awesome. If it wasn't for Matthew Schaefer and Demidov, he's right behind them for Calder Trophy. He's having an awesome season. So I might watch that late game. And Utah had a big scare of the weekend. Logan Cooley left the game after a knee-on-knee. He had a great week last week, but they thought maybe he'd miss some time, but it seems like he's okay. So there are a couple games tonight, and yes, I agree with you on New Jersey. New Jersey tonight hosting Columbus. But a couple games here I'll be switching. We'll have the Jets game on for sure on lock, but also flip into this NFL game as well. But it may not be a close one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's all about 6:30 in Buffalo tonight on In My World. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go Jersey minus 147, Philly minus 135, and I'll ride with you with the Sharks. Plus 140, it's plus 602. So put 20 down on that, win 140. And then I will be playing my exclusive in the Jets game in the exclusives at plus 775. Don't forget, not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, which is December 10th, next Coolbet Winnipeg Sports Talk poker tourney. Working on some exciting deals on that, details on that. So stay tuned to WST, and we'll hopefully be able to roll that out in the next couple days. But there is a poker tourney, not this week, but next week, December 10th. Elias McCracken, somewhere in chat, our defending champ after finally being the first guy to beat Jeff Hamilton in one of these tourneys. Remo, fun show today. Lots on this game tonight, and of course tomorrow, as the team moves on to Montreal, we'll be breaking down this game tonight between the Jets and the Buffalo Sabres, and then get ready for the Jets and the Habs. Habs, of course, had that great start to the season, and they still find themselves, like to compare them to Winnipeg, they went and won one game in 8, but then they bounced back with 3 straight wins and then got murdered by the Avalanche like everyone does right now. That'll be a big game for Winnipeg and certainly for Montreal after that great start to the season. But we'll start getting into it tomorrow. Latest on the team, I imagine they probably will. Maybe they won't skate tomorrow. Maybe an off day.
It's a travel day tomorrow.
Just travel day, off day. So we'll have more from last night's game and look ahead to Montreal and the Jets on Wednesday night. And then it is sort of weird. We're talking Buffalo to start the week. We're going to talk Buffalo to end the week as these two teams renew the, I can't really call it a rivalry at all. They play a team twice a year, but we'll get back at it on Monday against this team. And then again, that very busy week, another 6-4 or 4-6. Jets taking on the Edmonton Oilers on Saturday, and of course have to play at home on Friday night. So it makes this game even more important to find a way to get 2 points, in my opinion.
Yeah, you have to beat the teams below you in the standings. The Jets have done that this year, and hopefully that continues. We can talk about another win on Tuesday. So we do have some, not bomber news, but some other news that broke. We can touch on it. Taylor Elgersma worked out for the 49ers on Monday. Justin Dunk reporting on 3 Down Nation. So we're on Elgersma watch here. What does they sign that UFL MVP, who I think maybe we didn't give enough love to. That could be an interesting backup option, but everyone's wondering, what's Elgersma up to? He's just worked out for the 49ers on Monday, so he's sitting around waiting for a deal.
I feel bad doing this, but I hope that he does not get signed, and I hope that he signs with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and gets here and You got the guy they signed last week, and Elgersma to kind of move forward, learning with Zach from Zach Collaros. And when Hammer comes on later on this week, we'll get to the latest. I think we're going to talk to Taylor Allen tomorrow, who of course was out at the curling. Congratulations to Rachel Holman and Brad Jacobs, who will be wearing the maple leaf in Italy. Tough for our Manitoba teams. Maddie Dunstone was right there, just weren't able to beat. It really came down to that first game of the best of three. That was one that they could have had probably, and obviously weren't able to get to. And the Jacobs rink was phenomenal. They certainly deserve it. And kind of thought Carrie Anderson was the best hope for it not to be the Holman Empire. She lost to Christina Black, though. And I will say this, if you saw what Black had to say afterwards, that is about as classy an athlete speech after losing such a big moment in a big game. Just thanking everyone that was there, cheering them on in Nova Scotia, and then putting full support behind Team Holman to go out and get a gold. So talk to Taylor about the weekend out in Nova Scotia, as well as what he's hearing on the Bombers. We'll have a bunch more hockey talk. We'll have full reaction from tonight's game and so much more on tomorrow's show. I hope you will join us live at 1 o'clock p.m. In the meantime, gang, don't forget Prime Video tonight. Thanks to Thomas Hickey for joining us on the show. Mike McIntyre and Joe Yerdon. Everyone coming on from Buffalo today on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We'll have a big episode tomorrow with the latest on the Jets as they continue on their way to finish up the road trip in Montreal, and all the top stories of the day. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Thanks again to all of the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. Enjoy the game tonight. Stay warm, and we'll catch you tomorrow right here on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.